I'm Michael Tompkins, a friend of RUTH's. I would like to thank you all for joining us today to honor Ruth Stricker Dayton. Thank you to Kim and Mark, Ruth's children, for the invitation to celebrate, and a special thank you to the Marsh for hosting this event. Please join us in viewing a tribute video for Ruth.
Remember Ruth. One year already, Ruth. We miss you. When you first found me, you told me you and Bruce happened to be at the lecture at Stanford University when I gave a lecture demonstration on Tai Chi, and right after my first book, Embrace Tiger, was published. It was so fortuitous you were there, and apparently you were just developing your own learning interest in Chinese philosophy and Tai Chi practice. And my book fit into your scheme perfectly, you said. But only after decades later, because Joanna Hunter happened to work for you at the Marsh. She also studied with me, we were Tai Chi friends. She mentioned me and you got excited, said, we gotta invite Zhong Liang to the Marsh. She did, you did, and I came. And it's the beginning of a wonderful, wonderful kindred love affair. And you become my elder sister. I'm your slightly younger Chinese brother. And we share so much in the love for Chinese art and music and calligraphy. And I admire you, the work you do with Bruce, and we become friends. And I am so fortunate, so blessed, able to come back and support you and work with you, help your staffs, and sometimes biannually. And also thanks to Joanna, she always supports us together. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful, loving relationship of mutual supportive, mutual admiration, appreciation society. We are the siblings, loving or being siblings, kindred spirits. I miss you, and you left us too soon, but you live in our hearts forever, forever. You will continue to evolve and supporting me, encouraging me in my heart, in my spirit, in my work. And I love you. We miss you. Again, you will always live in our hearts. And you will continue to be my mentor, elder sister, guiding me along. And you live forever in all of our hearts. We love you. Thank you.
Honoring Ruth. Ruth and I were drawn to each other because we both shared a passion for Tai Chi and also for the philosophy and teachings of Donliang Ao Wang. When she described to me what she was trying to create at the marsh, what she was creating at the marsh was a place that applied this philosophy of Donliang. And it was a gathering place for people to come and be together and grow together. She was a magnetic force that drew people who loved that mission to come together and work together. Ruth had brilliant ideas, and she had persistence to accomplish them. But not only that, she had this great empathy for our humanness. And that's what helped bring balance. In many ways, I saw that was the center for balance. It's these ideals and this empathy. For example, shortly before my father died, we were getting ready to host a big program at the marsh, and she wasn't feeling that great, but she took time to share stories with me about her father and listen to mine, and it was felt very supportive in that moment. So the inspiration from Ruth that I think will live on is her ideals and also her empathy, and I will take that with me and forever be grateful. Thank you, Ruth.
I'm Marnie Hensel, and I just want to say that Ruth Stricker was a very large influence in my life. She was one of my closest friends, and she is the reason that I taught aerobics at the marsh, both pool and studio, for 25 years. I have been a competitive athlete all of my life. But until Ruth entered my life, I didn't really realize how much aerobics can influence your body, especially if you have had surgery to correct things like downhill ski racing accidents. I am now 90 years old, and I honestly thank Ruth for the condition that I am in. I use a walker, but I suffer no pain, and I can do anything that I want to do. Ruth was always an extreme giver, and she wanted everyone to be the best that they could be. Thank you, dear friend. I will always be grateful.
Hi, my name is Lyle Wiles, and I'm going to talk about what Ruth means to me. So Ruth and I used to laugh a lot about the way in which we met each other. And I was at the prison in Duluth, Minnesota, and one day there was a brochure that was flying across the air, and I don't know how it got from the marsh into a car at Duluth, and the door was open and the brochure blew out, blowing across the compound at the time that I was going to breakfast, and it stopped on the sidewalk, and I stepped on it and picked it up. And it was a brochure about the man who wrote the book called Flow. And so I wrote to her and asked if either he or she could come to the prison and speak to the Positive Attitude class graduation. And she wrote me back and said that he wasn't able to come, but she wanted to know more about what I was doing. So I wrote back and told her, and she agreed to come. So her and Ruth both came to the prison. And Ruth gave a really interesting talk, and she talked about how life isn't a long marathon, but it's a series of stops and starts. So if you want to change your life, you live it the way you want to live it, and if you make a mistake, you stop and you start again. And so each time that you start again, it'll get to be longer and longer, and you'll build a habit of having a new life. So it's been really interesting to visit with Ruth many times when I went down to the marsh. She agreed to come back the second time. The second time there was over 350 men that came into the theater at the prison, which was an army base, and they really enjoyed her talk. So I just want to say that Ruth has been a real inspiration to me. She's been a real inspiration to many prisoners, and we miss her. Thank you very much.
I'm Richard Leiter. Ruth and I were co-conspirators. We loved to dig into the big questions. Over a cup of coffee in her office, we would often look at, well, what on earth are we here for? What are we to do? What is the marsh to do? Ruth was a true seeker, on the growing edge, always a learner. She would always say, where have you been? What have you learned? What have you read? And we would dig deeply into it. Ruth's calling, I believe, was to heal others. When you know pain, others know it. She knew pain. She was vulnerable, yet she was invincible. She was always there on the edge, willing to help others, to lend a hand. And finally, she was relevant. To the very end, the marsh was her laboratory for relevance. And she kept the marsh relevant and kept all of us relevant to the very end. What on earth was she here to do? I think she heeded her calling, and for that we all are grateful, and we miss her.
Hey, Lynn. I guess we're supposed to be sharing stories about Ruth Stricker today. So why don't you share a story?
I would be happy to. I'm so sorry I'm not there with you guys. I'm there in heart and spirit for sure. I absolutely have so many memories with Ruth. I don't even know where to start. So she would always sit next to me in the general session at IceBomb. I would always save a seat for her, and she'd sit next to me and we would hold hands through all those amazing general session speakers. And we laughed and cried, and she was so much fun. But I have to tell you, Michael, my favorite Ruth story was in Austin. In 2009, we were at the final night party, and she decided she was ready to leave. And of course, you know, I was ready to leave. So we couldn't find a taxi. So we took one of those pedicabs. And I don't know if you remember, but going down to the hotel, there was that huge hill. So we started going down so fast, I was afraid. But you know what Ruth did? She threw her hands up in the air and went, whee, the whole way down the hill.
Oh.
So that is Ruth to me. You never wanted to upset her. You didn't want her to ever be disappointed in you. But man, she could have a lot of fun too at the same time. So great memory.
That is a great memory. You know, for the people who are in the room, they might not even know we knew Ruth from iSpa.
Right.
Where, you know, you run the organization and I was chairman. And it reminds me of a time that every year, you know, as chairman of the board, you sit in the front at conference. And I always had Ruth sit next to me. And for me, I'll never forget one time when Ruth came up to me and she said, you know, Michael, I think it would be better if I stood next to John because he's taller than you are, and I look better standing next to tall men. And so I was like, okay, no problem, Ruth. By the way, John is my husband and much better looking than me. And that was the real answer because I'm 6'2.5" and John is 6'3.5". So I doubt it was the 1 inch reason of why she wanted to sit next to John and stand next to John. So it reminded me of, you know, the times when Ruth did want something and she set out for it. She had a nice way of delivering her message to you, so you didn't feel slighted. And for me, I always appreciated that she felt like we should have a responsibility to others. And so a lot of the gifts, and she was a very generous woman, a lot of the gifts that Ruth gave came with strings. And for me, it was a bit of wisdom in the fact that I knew that anything that I did with Ruth and any of the gifts that I was blessed with for the organizations that I was responsible for, always had to deliver back on whatever she gave. And for me, I always kept in my mind that responsibility for others. And so it was wisdom that I will never forget. One of the things that I love about her.
It's so true. And she was so generous to iSpa as well and did a grant in her name, and her legacy will continue. And we're heading into our 30th anniversary conference, which unfortunately is virtual, which is why I'm not with you guys today, but I will have great memory of her sitting next to me and holding hands as we go into that this week. So thank you, Michael, for being there, and thank all of you, and love and hugs from Lexington, Kentucky.
Thank you for your tribute, Lynn.
Take care.
Bye. Visionaries have an ability to think about the future in creative and imaginative ways. Visionary leaders create powerful plans for changes in the future. Ruth Stricker Dayton was a visionary. Being the daughter of a minister, Ruth grew up in a service-oriented family. These roots set her on a path of life, integrating Eastern and Western philosophies, as well as creating her own philosophy based around the resiliency of the human spirit, to find our own sense of well-being in our mind-body connection. Ruth graduated from Macalester College with a double major in physical education and religion, setting the foundation for her life's work. The association between exercise and cognitive components blazed a new trail for the health and fitness industries, setting the stage for optimal health decades before the practice became the standard recommendation by medical professionals. A lupus diagnosis when she was in her 40s transformed her leadership into empowerment, challenging others as a well person in a diseased body. In 1985, Ruth founded the Marsh, a center for balance and fitness, the first known site to blend allopathic and alternative disciplines. Think about that. 36 years ago, this place became the center of the future by integrating spa and health club alongside a medical approach. In 1992, Ruth's pioneering efforts sponsored a 3-year research study on mindful exercise, where its findings indicated that combining physical exercise with cognitive strategy was superior to exercise alone in promoting psychological benefits. Mindfulness. How often do we hear that word now? Head and heart came together when Ruth married Bruce Dayton. Ruth's work expanded as a compassionate international humanitarian, traveling to the Soviet Union, advising and teaching on chronic conditions like diabetes. Ruth initiated professional exchanges with young physicians from the Soviet Union to come to the Marsh for training. Ruth and Bruce made 14 trips to China and funded a research project to study Qigong and Tai Chi as it relates to health and recovery for cancer patients. Ruth also worked with health professionals in Shanghai to study healing aspects of Chinese medicine and exercise. As many of us in this room know, Ruth's outreach was global, including the support of the arts and global peace, advancing integrative medicine, being known as the conscience of the spa industry, supporting mental health and medical facilities and research, and mentoring thousands of people like me on the importance of one's own conduct, intentions, and character, together with the feeling of obligation to do the right thing. Excuse me. Ruth exemplified a good citizen of the earth, working with all kinds of people, celebrating the specialness of the individual, the yin-yang, the visionary for the resiliency of the human spirit, the conscious of the spa industry, the founder of the Center for the Future, a supporter of mental health and fitness, art and science, an international humanitarian and a compassionate leader, the creator of Mind Body, Ruth Stricker touched lives of individuals far and wide across the globe. While today we give tribute to Ruth's life's work, I'd like to share a personal story, just one example, of Ruth, the visionary. In 2015, more than 6 years ago, I visited Ruth here at the Marsh. During a conversation on resiliency, we discussed an idea to bridge the socioeconomic and racial divide in a street art event in St. Louis after the Michael Brown shooting. Ruth said to me, "Michael, I see a similar divide in my city, here in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and we must do this event to begin a process of healing for all." The visionary mind, thinking about her city 6 years ago, and look what we are living in today. Ruth gave the first gift for Start St. Louis, became a founding board advisor, and helped me choose 12 artists, 3 who were art luminaries and 9 artists from the street, including homeless ones. Ruth insisted the artists be a representation of all walks of society: Black, white, Asian, Latino, mixed race, gay, immigrant, single mother, and the list went on. She also inspired us to find artists who created with spray can, paint and brush, textiles, singers, and poets. Each artist was given $4,000 to complete 2 large-scale pieces of art. The event was a tremendous success. Later, Ruth traveled to Las Vegas with me and the International Spa Association, along with some of our artists, to repeat the healing program for the staff of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino following the Country Music Massacre of 2017. Copies of the START Museum catalog from the event are on the table over here, and please feel free to take one with you when you leave. Just today, just 4 years later, that collection is worth $1.2 million. One of the homeless artists recently had his latest collection acquired by the Smithsonian Institute Museum of Art, and several of the street artists we discovered are being celebrated in the finest galleries and museums around the world. We changed lives for the artists and for the community. I had the privilege of gifting the collection from my nonprofit just 4 weeks ago, as Ruth would have loved, to Tribe All Good, a St. Louis nonprofit who encourages positive leadership among predominantly Black and brown populations in inner-city underserved St. Louis. Tribe All Good also supports art sustainability in those same areas. Extending a hand. Don Wiegand, a renowned sculptor from St. Louis, heard of our healing program, researched Ruth Stricker, and offered to cast her hands in a tribute to her life's work in 2019. Don and the Don Wiegand Foundation, the nonprofit he created to honor those who support their fellow man, has life casted in legacy ceremonies for U.S. presidents and their wives, and several others like Ruth, whose philanthropic work has been monumental. His sculptural subjects include visionaries like Charles Lindbergh, Ernest Hemingway, Winston Churchill, Dr. Martin Luther King, and religious leaders like Mary, Mother of the Church, Pope John Paul II, and Pope Francis. He is the sculptor of the Bob Hope Spirit of Hope Award, honoring military members who exhibit the USO spirit. Please welcome Don Wiegand.
I think my microphone's on, but it's hard to follow that. Holy cow, Michael, thank you. Wow. There's so much we could all say about this amazing woman. I'm so humbled to be here and happy to be here because in the short time that I knew her, which really hasn't been that long in my life, she certainly affected my life and everybody around me in St. Louis in more ways than you could imagine, that I'll explain in a minute. Today we're about to unveil an original clay that we've created at my studio. My staff and I, along with Pac Chittacone, Pac is right with me today, we created this bas-relief to depict Ruth, capturing her as much as we could, her spirit and her soul and what she stands for. We're going to do that in just a minute, but I thought I'd give you a little history real quick to show you what Ruth did for myself, our foundation, and what we've done for so many years. I grew up in a little town, West St. Louis in Chesterfield. I knew very young that I was loving art. I was about 3 years old in the crib when I used paper or anything I could get my hands on to create shapes. My family moved west in Chesterfield to a little town and started a famous store called the Smokehouse. We grew up upstairs. We were surrounded by cornfields and bean fields, and reminded me so much of the marsh that when we came here. Because I grew up this loving life and loving to sketch portraiture and capture the human life and the soul. In grade school, I learned that I wasn't very good at math, so if I sketched the sister very well, it helped my grade a little bit. So I thought, this is very powerful. I actually started, when people would come in the store, they'd ask me, well, Don, what did you create today? So I'd show them some of my pencil sketches. I was about 8. I'd show them some of my pencil sketches, and many times I'd sell instead of a pound of bacon over the counter, I'd sell one of my pencil sketches for $1. I guess what I'm saying is I learned how important art was for survival, for recording history, and capturing life. I love doing portraiture. I love abstraction. I love the human figure. I grew up realizing how important life is. It's so fragile. And what can we do as artists, which have shown through the history of the world that artists have recorded life and civilization and the advancement of civilization? As Michael, thank you for bringing up the wonderful thought that when I first met Michael through mutual friends, we talked about honoring Ruth because of her wonderful charitable work that we'd heard of. And at that point, I just started looking in and studying this woman and realizing, gosh, this is very important. She really touched a lot of lives here, and especially creating this amazing place, the balance between physical, mental, and the spirit. We talked about coming here and capturing her hands, which is a life cast. You know, for 5,000 BC, life has been tried to be captured, and life parts have been cast of the human body, hands, faces, torsos. It's one part of recording, as you want to call it, I call it actuality. You're actually capturing a moment of real, versus what we're about to unveil today, my interpretation of what we're talking about. But when we came, we casted Ruth's hands. That was March for her 84th birthday. What was going on in my life was very interesting. She heard about it. A few years before, in 2009, I started, 1965, I started taking the old slaughterhouse at the store and turning it into my studio, creating a place that was magical, accepting all faith, creed, religion, color. We're all equal in life, you know. We created a place that was a gathering place. I planted trees, I built the studio, sculpted it, created a place that's actually copyrighted. In 2009, the Corps of Engineers decided that they were going to take my property that we dedicated, that could never be rented, but could only be used to honor life. And how did I do that? We raised money for nonprofits there, all forms of nonprofits, through education, patriotism, and health. People would come from all over to use the studio to thank each other for what they've done for each other. But the Corps of Engineers decided they were going to take it, tear it down, and build an earthen wall to protect a large commercial development. Well, the public outcry was amazing. They stopped it from happening. But that didn't stop the bank from deciding. They called my notes. At that point, after 3 years of dealing with the battle, we were weakened. And for 5 years, the loving studio that we built with so many people the bank took it to try to sell it. And I have to say, when I came here, there was a group that was about to take the studio and tear everything down. And Ruth Stricker heard about this and saved my life work. She took and saved the studio with a couple other donors so we can put it into perpetuity through the Wiegand Foundation to continue to honor with art and history the support of the human soul. It's amazing that that happened at that time. We came in August to unveil the hands. I know most of you were here. And Pac and I came and presented the life casts and put them together in the final mounting. I was sitting there with Ruth and she looked at me because previously we talked about a sculpture of her. And she looked at me, as cute as she was, and said, "Are you going to sculpt me or not from McAllister College?" I said, "Yes, I am." You never want to argue with Ruth. It was an honor. Thank you, Ruth. So I started looking at photographs with Molly Wheatley, sent me photos of Ruth. We came back to St. Louis and started coming up with a composition that, what can we do to honor this amazing woman? To start talking about the balance, like Michael said. Her is a visionary, her spiritual side, that wonderful spot in noting the health of the body, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So today what we've done, traditionally in the studio, I would always have, when we started a clay, let participation happen. So we brought the original clay today, which is very fragile. Matter of fact, we usually don't drag the clays out because they are so fragile. After a year and a half of working on this piece, trying to capture the spirit, Pac Chittacone built cases so we could bring it here so it wouldn't get damaged. And today what we're going to do is show you the clays, and I'm going to invite the family of Ruth to come and unveil the clays. But I thought first what I'd do is walk over here and show you a little bit about the process. How do we pick a composition? And in sculpture, I developed a composition that I call negative space. I like floating images and balance, and that certainly does go along with Ruth. If you start looking at some of the shapes here, I started taking what I felt was a very powerful photograph of her, this one. After studying all the other photographs that I've seen, I wanted something that really started talking about how does this woman think and what is she doing? Because, ladies and gentlemen, art does record history. Ruth saw the first sketches, and she was saying from McAllister College when I showed her this design through photographs, okay? That composition right there turned into this. Her comment was, well, Don, I think we need something a little bit more traditional for the college, don't you think? And I said, Ruth, colleges, we need visionaries today more than ever. This shows you as a balanced, spiritual, thinking of the future and gathering everybody. That's my thought on this. The next stage is start the clay. We did get to show Ruth photographs of the clay in process before we lost her. And once again, I was really hoping we could get it done in time for her to actually come and put her fingerprint on it. I like the human touch. What I mean by that, life is, we all know, a partnership. I can't do this by myself. I have my team, my staff, and all of you, the support, because what we're doing now is showing you the piece before we cast it and finish it. I brought a couple examples here of some bronze and stainless over here of Stan Musial that posed for me, and the Lindbergh piece that we did. Here, actually one of the casts is here in your airport. We unveiled it for Charles's 100th birthday with the Lindbergh family in 2003. And a few of the medals, those are just samples of the bronze and stainless, which we're still talking about what do we want to put here at the marsh, the bronze or the stainless. So in the meantime, what I'd like to do, invite Kim and Mark up. Please come up. These are pretty fragile. It's crazy because this is a wax-based clay, and actually we melted at 175 degrees, so after a year and a half, even traveling, we don't want to get in the sun. So let's do this. Why don't you pull this, Mark, and I'm going to show you first the hands. So now, I call this a map. We take, actually, because what I'm trying to do is put everything I can of the subject into the clay. We use this, it's almost like transforming that into the piece. So what I'd like to do is show you the clay first here. Okay, and get this thing stuff up. Yeah, let's get it. Well, hey, Pat, come on up a second, will you, please? I need Pat with everything I do, ladies and gentlemen. Help hold that up there a second, will you? Just a minute.
Grab the tape.
Yeah, let's get the tape. Like I said, this is a partnership. I'm not alone on this. I need everybody's help. But that's why we're here, because I wanted you all to participate with the original clay before we cast it, which is the final statement of putting it in metal. Now it's in the spirit state. We're developing it. Kim, would you pull the portrait? Go ahead and pull that. I'm going to help roll that up there, Pat. I'm going to tape it. Okay, great. So there's two pieces here that are not together yet because we have to sculpt them separately. Now in this particular photograph, it's a bas-relief combined with bas-relief and mezzo. Mezzo is a little heavier relief. So because of the angle of that particular photograph, which is photographing Ruth down looking up at her, I wanted that angle to be captured. Another thing, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to come up in a minute and look, the angle of her portrait. One thing that we do in our bas-reliefs is to capture a profile. Even though the portrait's distorted, it's only an inch deep. So this is what I wanted to show you. When the hands are finished in the cast, okay, this is how it's going to fit together. It'll all float. So another important part of this ceremony, I feel, is I learned this years ago with all of us putting our heart and soul in this, because all of you, I'm gathering all your energy and soul to honor Ruth by unveiling it this way. So I thought I'd like to invite Ruth's family to actually put their thumbprint into the clay, to stay there with it. It's kind of a ceremonial, but it's a touching of the spirit and the soul, in the mind and the body. So this area right here, Pack, where are you? Sorry. You want to be the first?
Sure.
So what we're doing is, we've got an area right here. So Pack's going to help guide, because we're actually going to put the thumbprints of Ruth's children into the print, which will stay there when we cast it. I think that's important, because I think that as an artist, I feel that I'm trying to interpret for all of us something that I've learned on how can I portray this amazing woman who's affected so many lives. I want everybody to participate. Mark?
Anywhere in here. So you could. If it is, put it here, anywhere in here. And you can press it forward. There you go. Yep.
Okay. Three of you can come up.
So once we take this back to St. Louis, once all of you say, yes, it's a go, we'll make a rubber mold over it and start the waxes to pour the bronze and the stainless pieces.
Anywhere in here. That's fine. And push it forward towards me. There you go. Perfect. So you could go this way or that way. So there's no spot right there, and then you go down to put one in. Yep. And you move it.
I think Ruth would like this. You know, and she's probably guiding them right now. Put your thumb over there a little bit to the left, because I really do think her spirit is here with us. I think we can all feel it.
You could actually.
So what's going to happen is the pieces, the hands will actually, you'll see the thumbprints from the profile in the final casting.
Yeah, so you could go this way with it, so that way maybe you're touching your family right now. Yep. And kind of roll it forward. There you go, perfect. A little bit more. Rock it that way. There you go. Awesome.
Thank you.
Watch out there.
Yeah, watch the
We've turned the place into a studio, ladies and gentlemen. Got to watch where you walk. So everyone afterwards, please come up. We'd love to show you any pieces. And check out the piece from this side. We're very proud of that. If you, we did a big bas-relief heroic of Bob Hope that's in Los Angeles, the Bob Hope Airport. When you walk by it, as you walk into the terminal, and you walk by Bob, it's 8 foot tall. His face still holds together, even though it's only 6 inches by 8 feet. Thank you.
The 20th anniversary celebration of the March was set in similar decor to today. That event, like this one, opened with What a Wonderful World and included this song, Climb Every Mountain. In Ruth's own words from that day, she said, referring to the marsh, "This is my mountain, resounding to all the love you could give. We have climbed and we still have another stream to forge, another rainbow to chase. The marsh is our house of dreams. We can make dreams as an adult and follow them like a child. I want to introduce Benny Weinbeck, who's going to be playing Climb Every Mountain. Ruth touched and challenged each of us personally. I know she would be happy if we all engaged in a short meditation now. Ruth served on a collegiate board for over 20 years ago and approved a grant for a Cuban immigrant and his work in poetry. That poet, Richard Blanco, would go on to become the 5th inaugural poet in U.S. history and was a featured artist in our street art event for St. Louis. He wrote this meditative poem at Ruth's request for the healing ceremony I spoke about in Las Vegas. On a personal note, I remember being on the phone with Richard and Ruth at midnight and her telling him what she wanted in this poem, and especially toward the end, how she wanted him to make sure that it lifted up toward the sky. Please join me in listening as I read that poem, focusing quietly on Ruth's hands or Don's clay, her photo, or simply uncross your legs, close your eyes, and think of Ruth as we experience a piece of the work she commissioned for us. It's titled The Self Within the Self. This morning, like far too many mornings, you woke up with the stranger that is you, the self you've never loved enough, but who's always loved you more than enough, the one you ignore too often, but who's always within you in the murmur of your breaths when you bother to listen, the one whose invisible arms always hold your soul, no matter how much you resist the embrace, the self who remembers the dreams you surrender to the void, the one who can redeem them for you in full color, if only you would trust the stars, the one who draws you into dawn's light so that you may soothe the worry in your bones and burdened blood that you keep living with as if you had no choice, the self who calls you to rise like a songbird and sing your truth, though you've often remained mute with shame and fear, The face of the self you've kept hidden behind yours, not daring to stare straight in the mirror and see right through the one who dares to believe in you and erase all the doubt from your eyes as you brush your hair for the day. The self who invites you to sit down for coffee at your kitchen table and chat like a best friend who always knows just what to say to you, if only you would listen. The one whose hands you won't hold or cry with so you can step at ease into the raging world. The self on your drive to work who urges you to turn the radio off, quiet your noisy thoughts into a soft melody, but you don't. Or longs for you to sing aloud your favorite song like a prayer, but you don't. The self who begs you to see poetry in the clouds like a smoky ballad in the distance, the pines like giant angels pointed to heaven, and the road like your life, 1 mile at a time. The one who hails you to stop, smile at strangers to let them cross the street, and let you remember your path. The self you don't thank enough for teaching you how to give, the way the rain gives to a river, mountains give way to dust, and waves give to the shore. The self you don't give to as much as you give to others, or allow yourself to need, the way a bird needs a branch to rest, clouds need wind to carry on, and the moon's face needs the sun's touch. Enough. Tonight, come home to the self who's always lived within you. Greet yourself at your door and let yourself in. Pour wine, break bread, write in your journal. Dance alone with the one you've neglected far too long. Page through your old photos and find the self who's known you since you were a child, with all your joy and sorrow. The one who knows how to heal what you must heal and praise what you must praise. Let yourself be carried off to bed in the arms of the one who is your most loving self. Listen to that pure voice who has always been your compass, your counsel, your lullaby. Fall asleep as one with the one who has always burned within you, as bright and as true as the starlight in your eyes. Mark and Kim have a word of thanks they'd like to share.
Hello, everybody. What a beautiful day to celebrate our mother. I look around the room, and as I see so many people that have impacted my mother, as well I know have impacted yours. Our mother's life, as you well know, was the marsh. It is our hope and dreams to keep her legacy alive.
And I'd like to give a special shout out to the people that made this event happen for us today. Most importantly, you. Everybody, it's probably one of your first or second experiences out of the house, and so we so appreciate you coming today and being a part of this. It feels good to be together. It's kind of a sense of healing for us, for sure, and we're hoping that you take away as much as you've given to us today. I'd also like to give a special shout out to Michael, who flew in this morning and is doing this in such a beautiful way, the same way as your relationship was with our mother, and he's actually going to be catching a 6 o'clock flight out of here, so we so appreciate all that you've done, and really thank you for that. I'd also like to thank Don and his assistant Pac for, it's amazing how much you were able to put into your vehicle and drive here from St. Louis for this today, and it's just, But it's important. It's important to see all the pieces that go into what you're making, and a year and a half into it, it's beautiful, it's heartfelt, and we can't wait to see the finished product. I'd also like to thank Benny for the wonderful songs that you played, Mother's favorites for sure, and just brought back so many good memories for us. And it's fun to hear live music after all this time. Molly, we wouldn't be here without your wonderful, amazing organization and insight into, everybody's aware of the fact that we weren't able to celebrate our 35th anniversary last year, unfortunately, so it's bittersweet that we're here today. I call it 35.5, but so Molly just put together a spectacular 10 days of events. This is kind of the kickoff, so we're, again, grateful that you're here to do that with us, and just to thank her amazing crew. It takes really a village to put something like this together. And then I'd also like to acknowledge Glenn Gunderson and his amazing crew. Sally, Rich, and Devin are here with us today, hearing a lot about the 35 years that have got us to this point and 85 years of our mother's life work. We are just so grateful and excited that you're going to help us continue her legacy and share that with, ultimately, hopefully, the world. I know that's kind of a goal, so thank you for taking us into the future.
So, after a toast by Michael, we'd love for you to join us in the restaurant for some drinks and some of Mother's favorite food. And it would be great to catch up with you all.
So we're going to pass out some champagne and do a toast to Ruth. It looks like everyone has a glass now, so if we could please raise our glasses for a toast to Ruth. To Ruth Stricker Dayton, mother, friend, mentor, and visionary, may this tribute be a challenge for each of us to lend a hand. To Ruth. You're all invited to view Don's art, take one of the catalogs from the art event that we had with Ruth, and to join us afterward for a reception outside. Thank you all for coming this afternoon.